Dark confidence, the power introverts keep hidden. What if I told you that the quietest people in the room often carry the loudest truths? That behind every reserved glance, every thoughtful pause, there exists a force so potent, so steady, it can move mountains while barely making a sound. We live in a world addicted to noise where charisma is mistaken for wisdom, where speaking fast and loud is often confused with knowing what you're talking about. But under that shallow surface, there are those who move differently. They don't demand attention. They command it without ever asking. This is the paradox of the introvert. And what we're going to explore today is not just a personality type, it's a hidden form of power I call dark confidence. It's a kind of strength forged not in the spotlight, but in solitude. And unless you've lived it, you may never know it exists. Let's begin with a dilemma. Society tends to equate confidence with extroversion. We imagine the confident person as someone who walks into a room and captivates everyone with their energy, their voice, their presence. But what if that's only one side of the coin? What if confidence doesn't always look like performance? What if true confidence, deep confidence, isn't about proving anything to others, but about having nothing to prove at all? This is where introverts hold a secret weapon, because while extroverts often build confidence externally through feedback and interaction, introverts build it internally through reflection, mastery, and self-knowledge. And self-knowledge, when truly realized, is unshakable.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Dark confidence is born in silence. In the long hours where no one is watching. In the places where thoughts echo louder than voices. It's in the introvert's ability to sit with discomfort, to analyze emotions, to contemplate meaning without needing immediate answers. But think about it. How many people can truly be alone with themselves and not crumble? How many can sit in stillness and not feel the need to escape into noise, screens, or validation? That ability to stay present with your own mind is not weakness. It is the foundation of inner power. And that power, when channeled, becomes unstoppable. But here's the twist: introverts often don't realize they have this power, because the world never told them they did. Instead, it told them to speak up more, to be more outgoing, to come out of their shell, as if silence was something to be cured, as if solitude were a defect to be corrected. The tragedy is that many introverts spend years trying to become someone they're not, all while sitting on a reservoir of strength they've never been taught to access. And that strength is not loud. It's not flashy, but it's real. It's the kind of strength that doesn't flinch under pressure, that doesn't need applause to feel worthy, that can lead without shouting and influence without needing to be seen. So how do we awaken this dark confidence? It starts with reclaiming your space, with realizing that just because your strength doesn't look like someone else's doesn't mean it's less powerful. In fact, it may be more, because it's yours. It's built from the ground up, layer by layer, thought by thought. It's the result of deep personal work, and that work is invisible to most people. But here's the thing: invisibility is not weakness. It's stealth. And stealth is a kind of power that's so rare, it's almost mythical. Ask yourself, have you ever underestimated yourself simply because you didn't fit someone else's mold of confidence? Let's go even deeper. Philosophically speaking, confidence is not merely a feeling, it's an existential stance. It's how you relate to uncertainty. Most people seek certainty in external things, status, approval, personality tests. But the introvert, by nature, has an inner world so vast that they're forced to confront uncertainty on a personal level. They don't distract themselves from doubt, they live alongside it. And in doing so, they develop a tolerance most people never will. That tolerance becomes resilience. And resilience, when matured, becomes confidence. not the kind that draws attention, but the kind that shines through presence. There's a quote by Lao Tzu that says, "He who knows others is wise, he who knows himself is enlightened." Introverts are wired for self-knowledge, not because they're better, but because their energy flows inward. And that inward flow, when harnessed, allows them to access parts of themselves that others only glimpse during breakdowns or breakthroughs. The question is, what would happen if you stopped trying to be more like them and instead became more of you? What if your silence was not an absence, but a presence waiting to be understood? Many of the most impactful people in history were not the loudest. They were the clearest. They spoke when it mattered. They acted when it counted. And they didn't waste energy on performance. Introverts don't need to become extroverts to be powerful. They need to become aware of their internal clarity, aware of their unique rhythm, aware that their quiet nature is not a limitation, but a lens that sees what others miss. And so, I leave you with this thought: if the world stopped shouting for a moment, what truth would rise up from your silence? The invisible engine, why inner stillness is the root of unshakable confidence. To understand dark confidence fully, we have to go to its core, the invisible engine that drives it. And that engine is inner stillness. Not silence for the sake of absence, but stillness as a radical form of presence. Picture this: most people operate like a storm, constantly reacting, spinning, reaching. But the introvert, when they activate their true nature, becomes like a mountain, still, grounded, unmoved by surface winds. This stillness is not passivity, it's power under control. It's the exact opposite of apathy. Its presence so deep it becomes immovable. And from that stillness something extraordinary emerges: unshakable confidence. Now, let's be brutally honest for a moment. Most people confuse excitement with confidence. They think if they feel pumped, loud, expressive, they must be confident. But that's not confidence, it's adrenaline. It's a state that comes and goes. True confidence is not a spike, it's a baseline. It's what you return to when the noise fades. And for introverts, that baseline is cultivated in solitude. Not isolation, solitude. There's a difference. Isolation is running from the world because it's overwhelming. Solitude is returning to yourself because it's clarifying. In solitude, you begin to hear your own thoughts without distortion. You begin to feel your values, not as ideas but as anchors. You begin to know not just what you want but who you are when everything else is stripped away. And that's the key. Most people never get to that level because they're always surrounded by noise, external and internal. They seek validation in likes, applause, affirmation. But confidence that depends on external validation is not confidence. It's dependency in disguise. It's fragile. And when the applause stops, so does their sense of self. Introverts, on the other hand, have the potential to build something far more stable. Because their validation doesn't come from how many people agree with them, it comes from how deeply they've thought through what they believe. And when you've sat with your beliefs long enough, when you've tested them in silence and shaped them through reflection, they become a part of you. They're no longer just arguments, they're identity. And identity rooted in clarity is the birthplace of calm power. This is where the most misunderstood form of confidence is found, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that doesn't flinch under criticism because it's not built on ego, it's built on understanding. And understanding is stronger than pride. It doesn't rise and fall with opinions, it endures. So when someone questions you, you don't react, you reflect, you listen, you measure. And when you respond, your words carry weight, not because they're loud, but because they come from depth. This is what I mean by the invisible engine. It's the quiet work happening beneath the surface, the mental and emotional discipline that no one sees. It's the night spent thinking when others chase distraction. It's the habit of asking deeper questions not just about the world, but about yourself. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I stand for when the crowd disappears? Could I live with myself if I betrayed my own values, even if no one ever found out? These are not just questions. They are crucibles. They forge a kind of confidence that no external source can give and no external force can destroy. That's the power introverts keep hidden, not because they want to hide it, but because it's not for show. It's for use. When the moment comes, they're ready, not because they practiced a script, but because they became the message. And that's a different level of power. That's the kind of presence that can walk into a room and shift the energy without saying a word. So think about the people who've influenced you the most. Were they always the loudest? Or were they the ones who, when they spoke, made you feel something deeper? Maybe they didn't say much. Maybe they just were. Their life, their choices, their calm intensity, it all spoke for them. That's what dark confidence looks like. It's the quiet knowing that you don't need to prove yourself, because you've already done the work within yourself. And that kind of confidence is rare because it requires something most people avoid: stillness. Stillness demands that you face yourself. No filters, no distractions, just you and the raw truth. That's terrifying for many. But for the introvert who chooses to lean into it, it becomes a superpower. Because once you've met your own mind and made peace with its shadows, no one else's opinion can unmake you. You stop fearing judgment, not because you're above it, but because you've already judged yourself and you've done it fairly, thoroughly, compassionately. And when you accept yourself like that, the world loses its leverage over you. So, let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped chasing confidence and started building stillness? What would happen if your power didn't come from being seen, but from being centered? The quiet charisma. How introverts influence the world without dominating it. There's a strange assumption in modern culture that influence must be loud, that in order to lead, to inspire, to move people, you have to dominate rooms, crowd stages, capture attention with magnetic energy and relentless speech. But this idea is shallow, and frankly it's wrong. Because there's another kind of influence that doesn't demand the spotlight, but commands something far more valuable: respect. It's the quiet charisma of the introvert, the kind of presence that doesn't chase influence but attracts it. And the reason it's so powerful is because it comes not from control, but from clarity. It's not about volume, it's about vibration. The kind that resonates long after the words have stopped. You see, most people think charisma is a performance. But real charisma, quiet charisma, is not something you turn on. It's something you embody. It's the natural result of inner alignment, when your thoughts, values, and actions are in sync. People can feel it. They may not always be able to articulate it, but they're drawn to it. Because in a world full of projection and performance, authenticity is magnetic. And that's where introverts thrive. They don't waste energy on pretending. They don't inflate themselves to seem impressive. They understand themselves, and that understanding radiates. It creates a kind of gravity, quiet, consistent, undeniable. Introverts influence through depth, not volume. Where others skim the surface, they dive into the essence. In conversation, they listen more than they speak, but when they speak, it matters. Their words are intentional. They're not trying to fill silence, they're trying to speak truth. And truth, when spoken clearly and calmly, pierces deeper than any speech delivered with fireworks. This is the paradox. The less an introvert tries to dominate, the more people feel their presence. Because instead of demanding attention, they create space. And in that space, others feel seen, not overpowered, understood. That's real influence. Not manipulation, not spectacle, but connection. And connection is something introverts excel at, not in large groups, but in meaningful interactions. One-on-one, they have the ability to make people feel deeply heard. And when someone feels heard, they open up. They trust. They remember. That's why some of the most respected leaders, creators, mentors, and thinkers throughout history have been introverts. They didn't need to overpower people. They empowered people, not by making noise, but by making meaning. But let's not confuse quiet charisma with passivity. This isn't about being agreeable or stepping back from life. It's about stepping forward with intention. It's about choosing your moment, your words, your energy. It's not about shrinking, it's about conserving. Introverts often hold back not because they're afraid, but because they're calculating, observing, strategizing. When they do act, it's with precision. And that precision is a form of power that's vastly underrated. While others burn themselves out trying to be everywhere, introverts often achieve more by being exactly where they're needed and nowhere else. That's efficiency. That's focus. That's influence without waste. So here's a question to sit with. What if your quiet nature wasn't a disadvantage you had to overcome, but a design you were meant to optimize? What if your way of moving through the world, slow and steady, thoughtful and intentional, was not a flaw but a form of wisdom? The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more signal. And introverts, when they embrace their nature, become signal carriers. They don't flood the world with content, they offer substance. They don't chase every opportunity, they master a few. And in doing so, their impact becomes not just wide, but deep. I think of the ripple effect. A loud splash might grab attention, but a deep drop creates waves that reach much further. That's the essence of quiet charisma. It's not about the moment. It's about the movement. It's the kind of influence that builds slowly, but lasts. Not because it was shouted from rooftops, but because it was lived consistently. And the people who are watching, not the crowd, but the ones who truly matter, they see it, they feel it, and they follow it. In a world obsessed with being seen, introverts have a different mission: to see clearly. And in doing so, they lead not with flash, but with depth, not with dominance, but with direction. The final ascent: how to turn hidden strength into world-changing action. Here's the truth most people never admit: power isn't always about who's in front. It's about who's aligned. It's about whose actions are rooted in something deeper than ego, something more stable than applause. And that's where the introvert's journey reaches its final ascent, not in staying hidden, but in learning how to move from their hidden strength. Because confidence without action is just potential. It's only when you begin to step into the world, carrying the full weight of your self-awareness, that you begin to transform not just yourself, but everything around you. But let's be clear, action doesn't mean noise. It doesn't mean becoming someone you're not. It means choosing where and how you show up. The introvert's power has always been about precision. That same precision must now be applied to action. You don't need to do more. You need to do more of what matters. The final ascent isn't about turning into the extroverted version of yourself. It's about turning inward stability into outward impact. That means using your discernment, your insight, your calm, and your clarity to build, create, support, lead. Not loudly, effectively. And this is where you start to shift the world, not by overpowering it, but by recalibrating it. You bring stillness where there's chaos. You bring thoughtfulness where there's reactivity. You bring depth where there's shallowness. And people notice even if they don't say it. Because the world is starving for people who move with integrity. People who don't crumble under pressure because they've already dealt with their inner storms. That's you. That's the introvert who has done the lonely work. The one who didn't skip the inner journey. The one who, when they finally decide to act, does so with a kind of force that doesn't need to shout, because it resonates. You don't have to build empires overnight. You don't need to change the entire world in a week. You just have to act from your center. And when you do, what you create, say, build or lead, will carry the fingerprint of your depth. That's what changes lives. That's what inspires others, even if they never tell you. You become a living example of what it means to move from grounded power. And that example ripples far beyond anything you can measure. Too many people wait for permission. They wait until they feel ready. But readiness is a myth. Clarity is what you need. And you already have it. You've been cultivating it in silence, in solitude, in reflection. The only thing left is to decide. Decide to move. Decide to speak when it matters. Decide to build what you know the world needs, even if no one else sees it yet. Ask yourself, if you stopped hiding your strength, what would become possible not just for you, but for the people your strength is meant to serve? Because make no mistake, your confidence isn't just for you. It's a tool, a gift, a torch. Other people are trapped in their own noise, their own storms. When they see you steady, calm, intentional, they remember what's possible. You don't have to save everyone. You just have to become fully yourself. That alone is a revolution. So this is the final truth. Dark confidence isn't about being better than others. It's about being fully rooted in yourself. It's about knowing that even in your quietest moments, you are still powerful. Even in your calmer state, you have gravity. And when you finally choose to move, not to prove, not to impress, but to express, you send a shockwave through the world that only the deeply grounded can create. So don't wait, don't shrink, don't apologize for your stillness. Let it be your signal. Let your presence speak. Let your action echo. The world doesn't just want your voice, it needs your depth. This is dark confidence, the power introverts keep hidden. Until now.